All right, here we are. Welcome to episode one of the Man of Options podcast. I'm Rob Kowalski, and this is my co-host, Anthony Clark. And in today's conversation, we're going to pull back the curtain on Babylon. Y'all probably don't know what I'm talking about, but that's the system that most Christians are living under without even realizing it. And we're not talking about a history class. We're talking about the institutions that are around you right now. And today's guest is a guy that goes by the name of Daegen Carey. He's a musician, a Christian businessman, a family man, and someone who doesn't shy away from controversy. Dagan's been talking about Babylon, bloodlines, gender dynamics, and what it really looks like to create marriages that are fun, passionate, and alive. Not stuffy, not dead, not another box to check. So, welcome to the show, Dagan.
Man, it's great to be here, Rob. I really appreciate it. I've heard great things, and the conversations we've had have been great, and it's an honor to be here in episode 116.
It's actually episode one. So that originally I was going to make it a continuation of my old podcast, Kowalski Analysis, and Anthony and I decided that we were going to go a new route, Man of Option.
Oh
You're
man,
the
a new
first guest,
beginning,
brother.
a
You're the
new
first guest.
beginning. I love it, a rebirth.
Yeah, you're
This
the
is the
first.
Genesis episode.
Exactly.
That's great. Genesis point Bloodlines and Babylon is a good round of topics for that.
Yeah, man, you're our Adam.
It's only been a lifetime. All right. Well,
So,
but really
yeah,
quick before we start, Rob, what's can I ask you what's your favorite thing about podcasting?
man, that's a good question. I like to have interesting conversations with people, learn new things. For me, I guess I'm all about getting the message out about the false doctrine of monogamy only. So I'm just doing what I can to, get attention, create awareness. So I've had a lot of guys that were practicing it on the podcast. But yeah, I guess my favorite thing is to pull back the curtain on, like, man, I was all like, when I got saved, I was all in mainstream Christianity. I just believed everything they told me. And then at some point, you get red pilled or God
Right,
pilled or whatever you want to call it. And you start realizing a lot of stuff isn't true that they've been telling you. And we are living in Babylon, right? And
right.
most mainstream Christians, like, and I'm make this short as possible, but I read something in my devotional. Me and my wife were reading together, and it said something about do not, yeah, well, Romans 12:2, do not be conformed any longer to the pattern of this world. And
Mm,
I said, there's layers to that because when I became a
mm,
Christian, I definitely had to make some serious changes because I was definitely as conformed as anyone can be to the world. But then now I'm having a lot of issues because I've learned the truth about some things, and it's creating a lot of problems with my family and even other believers. So there really is a lot of layers to that conformity, right? And people don't know. They think they're a great Christian, but they're conformed to the world on some
Well, that is being Christ-like, is having that moment of where you have the institutions and the people around you and even other believers kind of step back from the things you may be saying, because that's what Yeshua did, right? So if you're not doing that, are you truly being like Yeshua, or are you just being of the world? Are you being of Jesus's flock, or are you being of the world's flock?
right, right now. I said it to my wife today. Jesus said, I didn't come to bring peace, but a sword. He's meant the enemies will be people of your own family.
Yeah,
Which, sucks. But if you're not having some friction with people, then like you probably something's wrong because we should have friction.
right,
We're living in
right.
the enemy's world. So let me ask you this just to start off, and Anthony, you can just chime in because you know Dagan better than me.
Mm.
At any point, just jump in there. But I was just how did you come to this? Because you sounds like I was, saw that you had some conflict with your family, with your dad. So you weren't necessarily taught this. Like, how did you come to this Babylon concept, and when did you start to unplug?
Are you talking to Anthony or me?
No, I'm
Uh,
talking to you, Dagan.
Oh, okay, because me and Anthony have this. You could ask us both this question, right, Anthony?
well, yeah, but you're stronger on it, and you've taught me a lot about it and woke me up to things that I hadn't thought about before. So this is definitely a you, Dagan. This is go for
So,
it.
could you just paraphrase the question one more time?
Sure. I just was curious as to, like, how did you come to this truth? I mean, I know how I
Mm,
personally came to biblical marriage,
okay,
for example. Like,
right.
I went through
On the Babylon thing.
Yeah, how did you come to, who taught you this?
No one will, Yeshua. So what I'll say is this. I had sorry to cut you off, Rob.
No
So I
problem.
had a defining moment with my earthly father happen, my dad, where essentially I'm married, and my obviously I'm married to a virgin girl who's been with me her entire life. We've been together since I was 17, she was 15, high school sweethearts. She's only ever been with me. She's submissive, beautiful, the perfect wife, all I could ever ask for in a wife. And uh, a few years ago, before it became a big mainstream thing with Andrew Tate and the likes of like generally the manosphere and stuff, about 6 months before that was kind of a big cultural thing, I had felt led in me to address the fact that because my marriage was essentially perfect and soundproof, but I knew that I was attracted to other women. I didn't want to like cheat on my wife or anything like that. I was actually very satisfied. I didn't really want any other women or anything like that. But I felt led to address this and essentially tell my wife, hey, I feel the Lord trying to work through me on the fact that I, as a man, should be able to come into my bridal chambers and say exactly what it is that I want and what it is that I desire in the sanctity of my safe marriage, as long as it's not perverted or against the law, which it's not, and I'm just a man. I should be able to say, hey, this is what I want, and you're my
Mhm.
bride, and you should feel safe in that. And that started as a conversation I had a few years ago, and it was like a like a 3 hour long walk through the desert streets with my wife, and she was upset, and we talked it through, and it was a lot of walks. I probably put in well over 1,000 hours, 2,000 hours of talking with my wife before really doing anything with any other women or anything like that. But what I'll say is that it essentially led to me understanding, okay, well, fornicating is wrong. I don't want to fornicate. I didn't even look to the Bible at first. I just kept it with Yeshua, kept it in my instincts. And then after a certain amount of months, then I went to media and scripture and other things and started exploring what other people were saying, what scripture said. And I saw where my instincts lined up with scripture and it didn't line up with media, and how some things that people said in the media as this began to be a big cultural moment. We all remember with the whole gender dynamic thing. Uh, 6 months after I started this with my wife, that began to be a thing about when I started looking into the media thing, coincidentally, and scriptural aspects of it, and stopped just trusting my instincts only. I was seeing that a lot of what people were saying in the media in the manosphere, quote unquote, was maybe laced in truths, but not all the way true, kind of like how the enemy likes to deceive by twisting and manipulating. So there will be a lot of half truths or even 90% truths or 99% truths, but
Mhm.
it's that 1%. I always say an analogy like heaven is perfect. New Jerusalem's going to be perfect. Nothing or no one that's flawed can be in it. So if you're like a 99.9% perfect pure glass of water, but you have just 0.001% poo poo in that water, would you drink the water? No. And God wouldn't let the water into New Jerusalem either. So you need to be pure and perfect. So it's important that especially if you're married to a virgin girl, that you know what the fuck you're doing. Part of my French when handling like other women and making sure you're not breaking the law and you're keeping the sanctity of your marriage. So
Mhm.
that being said, I garnered some experience with other women, and I didn't fornicate, and I had the opportunities to fornicate. I've been in women's beds and then be like, "You're not gonna fuck me," and me being like, "No, I'm not." But we can cuddle and watch a fucking movie, and I'll like touch your tits or something. Maybe I don't know, but maybe we'll play around other ways. But anyways, so after garnishing some experience, there's a girl where I worked. I worked for my father. And my father owns the largest hazardous waste transportation and management, regulatory management company in southern Arizona. It handles all of the big contracts for all the institutions, the medical facilities, and the government, and the border patrol, and the military, and all that kind of stuff. And all the big companies, all the big gorillas play with him. And he has a secretary, and the secretary has a daughter, and the daughter to the secretary is kind of like the secretary's secretary. And I knew of the girl for a couple of years, but I like moved in on her to get her phone number and hit on her. I got her phone number, hit on her, and then and she knew I was married. She knew I saw other women as well. And she was young, very, very beautiful, very ideal. And essentially, it started off a many months long thing between her and I with added me being married drama and workplace tension, but nothing that bled into the workplace in regards of causing like drama between people that weren't her and I. And my father, I told my father about it because I was seeking advice for it, and he essentially got jealous about it. I could get into more details about it, but the girl had like a necklace that I had given her that she kept in her desk. And my father took it and had her removed from the desk because he told me I basically wasn't allowed to talk to the girl, or uh, her and I weren't allowed to have a relationship because we both worked there. And I was like, well, I'm in love with the girl, and it's the only girl I've ever fallen in love with besides my wife. So out of all the other girls I've encountered and met, and so love isn't going to stop. Money's not going to stop love. So I'm going to still pursue the girl. Essentially, I told him that and said, "Hey, I need you to talk to me about it, and we need to figure something out, or I need to figure it out." And he kind of just refused to talk to me about it, and essentially was like, just didn't say anything. So he basically went in and stomped on my parade, fucked it up, and then I found the necklace in his desk. I took it. He came back a few days later, and he was, because I didn't come to work for the next few days, and he was like, "Oh, I know why you didn't come into work, because I stepped on your dick." And I was like, "Thanks, Dad." Uh, Essentially, a month or so later, in the workplace, my father made a comment about my wife. He said my current wife, had a perfect ass. And I said that if you say that again, I'll shoot you in the face. And I honor my father. I don't even like my father's company. I only ever worked for my father's company because I wanted to ensure that his legacy would stay. I'm his only son after he passed. Um, and if anyone else said that about my wife, I would just kill him on the spot, to be quite honest. But he said that. I said, "If you say that again, I'll shoot you in the face." He doubled down, looked me square in the eye, and said, "Your wife's perfect ass." And I got down and I pushed him. He fell on the ground, fractured his hip, hit his head on a toxic drum, and then he's like, "Get the fuck out of here." I left, came back the next day, and kept working. And stayed working for him because I love him and I honor him. But I honor my wife too, and I protect my wife. She's vulnerable. My father's not vulnerable. So I'm called to honor him. When you're supposed to, this is something we can talk about because we were talking about parents and family members earlier. What honor means, it means to do right by moment. So if your parent says something or does something, or you have a moment with your parent, you need to make sure you do the right thing by them within the moment. That's what honoring means. It doesn't necessarily mean to listen to them flat out. If your parents say, "Hey, don't obey Jesus," to honor them, you'd have to say, "That's wrong. This is why you should obey Jesus," because you're doing right by them and the life in them in that moment. There's a verse in scripture, and actually extra biblical scripture as well, in the Nag Hammadi library, that says, if you cannot hate your father and hate your mother in place of Yeshua, then you can't love Yeshua. Yeah. So, and that doesn't mean you're supposed to hate your father. What it's saying is that if your parents are of the world and Yeshua isn't, and you have a dividing point, you have to give up everything for Yeshua.
Yes.
So praise Yeshua Christos, amen. So I pushed my father because he dishonored the sanctity of my virgin wife. In law, if you were to do this, the punishment is greater than being pushed. Obviously, I wouldn't do that against my father, even though I threatened to. And if it was anyone else, I would. I love my father, and I couldn't do that. I could never do that. I could never hurt him beyond pushing him. I love him as a person and as my father. So, that being said, he harbored some resentment for that moment. And when the time came down to it, because I'm sure you gentlemen know, in pursuing women while being married, that when women who are not your wife are being pursued by you, or you guys are establishing a relationship, women who are not the married wife yet and are seeking a relationship with a married man are very finicky about being in a relationship with a married man. Very,
Mhm.
very finicky about it.
Yep.
So my dad came in and basically had the HR lady and my dad and everyone in the office basically corner the girl and basically be like, "Are you in a relationship with Daegan?" And she had to be like, "No." And then they fired me for sexual harassment.
So this was because I'm super
And
interested.
I'm the one who told my dad about the situation.
Right.
The girl was fucking around with me. Like, there's endless proof on it. I made an hour-long video defending myself, giving all the proofs, kept it private, only sent it to my father. He didn't even watch it.
Yeah. I'm super interested about the Babylon question. I want to get
Oh,
back there, but
sorry.
no, no,
This
no,
has to do
no,
with
no, no.
Babylon. It has to do with it.
Well, let me tell you a story because I didn't know that we would go here, but I had a situation that happened. Anthony knows about it because I talked about it in our Man of Options community. And there's a girl at Panera. You know, I go to Panera. I'm on their little sip club. I work from there a lot, get my coffees there pretty much every day. And there was a cute girl there I've seen, and she looked familiar. I thought maybe I just from seeing her here or maybe at church or something. I don't know. I just thought she looked familiar. I got into a little conversation with her, and Anthony and I were actually on a call with another guy named Tim Hanline who just got betrothed. He had to an 18-year-old girl that he had known since she was 12. He knew the family, and this guy's 50 in his 50s. Anyway, this was literally right after that. So I'm talking to this cute young girl at Panera, and I just say, you want to go to Dave's Hot Chicken sometime and grab a bite? And she goes, what? She goes, I'm 17. And I was like, uh, you know, I wouldn't have any problem marrying an 18-year-old. I wouldn't marry a minor. I wouldn't break the law. But I said, as it doesn't, if it doesn't bother you, it doesn't bother me. And she goes, don't you have a girlfriend? And I said, I actually have a wife. And she goes, no, thank you. And she just walked away. It was awkward. And I was like, oh, whatever. I just kind of wrote it off because, we talk about cold contacting in the group. But 11 o'clock that night, I get a bang on my door. It's my stepfather. Okay. Who's not he's not religious, but he definitely is not an advocate of biblical marriage. He's already talked shit to my wife before, like he needs to stop doing that and blah, 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 like whatever. I'm not doing anything. I'm just mostly just talking about biblical marriage online, polygyny specifically. But he kept bangs on my door. You're fucking up. He said. He goes, you're fucking up. I said it was his nephew's daughter, and I'd seen her at a family function months earlier, and I just forgot. So it became this big thing in my family where the father threatened me on the phone. I'll slice your effing throat. I was like, dude, if you want to fight, I'm like, look, I didn't have bad intentions. I waited until marriage with my wife. So it got me really thinking because they made me feel bad, like I was a degenerate or something, like I was this horrible person. And I was like, I really wasn't even interested in the girl. I was just kind of like trying to stay sharp, overcome any fears of cold contacting. I probably would have never even followed up. But
Right. I do that a lot. A
if I
lot of cold
had,
contact without follow up. I
yeah,
understand that.
yeah. So just staying sharp. But if I had, I told my mom, I said, it would have been the best thing for her. I said, think about this. Okay, yeah, you might say it looks weird because there's such an age gap. I said, but what's the likelihood of what's going to happen now? She's going to date guys, she's probably going to get ran through a few times. They're going to drag their feet. They're not going to marry her right away, waste some of her best years. And then maybe when she's 25 or 30, she'll get married, finally find a guy that marries her. And then she's got a 50% chance of divorce, even if the guy does stay faithful. That's the numbers. That's the reality of what she versus me. I would have honored her, waited till marriage. Yeah, okay, I have a wife. But like I was talking to my wife about it, I'm like, isn't that better? I'm like, yeah, there's an age gap, but this goes back to the Babylon question because in my family's eyes, they think this is some terrible thing because I have a wife and I ask out this young girl. But I'm like, if I was interested in her, this would have been a very good thing for her because I am a godly man. I am following the Lord to the best of my ability. I lead my wife spiritually. I honored her. I saved sex for marriage. Like I would have done the same thing for this girl and given her babies and a better relationship with God. And now she's going to be, who knows what's going to happen to her. I mean, I'm not saying maybe she will get wiped out, but she would be the exception to the rule.
Well, I have an example of this kind of exact situation, to be quite honest. I don't advocate for breaking the law, and I also am not personally, I don't advocate for men being attracted to women who are below a certain maturity level and age. I think that I'll give a good example. Olivia Rodrigo is a girl I'm really attracted to, but when she was 18 and 19, I felt like she still didn't look quite mature enough. But at 19, I felt like she looked mature, more mature. So I think that 17, you know, in Arizona, there's a law of your fifth, it's like a 2 year law. If you're underage, you can be with someone that's 2 years older. So my wife and I fell under that law, but I definitely wouldn't even want to be with an 18-year-old girl unless they looked mature enough to me. They looked essentially ready to be a wife. I wouldn't be even attracted to them. But what I will say is this: there was a girl who I had a situation with that was 17 that told me that she was 18. I never met her in person during this time. It was just phone calls and stuff like that, for continual phone calls for many nights on end. But we video called, and I essentially ID'd her. I was like, I'm gonna need, because her pictures, she picked pictures that made her look a little younger, right? So, and if she video calls, like, this is close. I'm gonna need you to give me ID. She didn't give me ID. She came back whenever she was 18 and messaged my wife and said that her and I were essentially like messing around, doing phone calls and stuff like that, and said she was 17 at the time. But the point of the story is that in the year or so since, the girl has you can see the experience with other men and other situations have gravely impacted her and her life direction. Even just being an 18-year-old looks very bleak, and that's very sad, you know. So girls can definitely lose that state of innocence really, really fast. But I think it's really important, really, really the most important, for young men to get married to young girls.
Yeah.
So I understand through our perspective as men who are already married, and also we value virginity and we value youth and inexperience in like an 18 or 19 or 20-year-old girl. I still feel that the best case scenario for these girls is to be married to a young gentleman that is closer to their age. But the course of history in our modern setting, as you all know, is that these young gentlemen are fucking dropping the ball, and they don't even value the virginity or the innocence. They don't even understand what's in front of them. So there's a lot of, and especially because in this generation of Zoomer girls, there's like more virgin girls now than there kind of ever was. They're very, they're young people aren't having sex, and when they are, it is reckless and they go off that path, the young ones, right? So it's almost like people are either just not having sex and being incel, or not having sex and being religious, or they're falling off of this path with just a few people kind of in a repetitive motion. And these girls are kind of stuck in this three-way situation where either they're incel, religious, or they go down this bad path. The incel situation is bad because what the incel situation really creates is it harbors just, and this is kind of what Babylon wants with the young girls. They kind of don't even want them having sex. They want them to just be in their thoughts and then focus on getting a job, building themselves career, and then add a few years to them, and then they'll go and do the reckless sex. Or maybe they'll be in a marriage that's stuffy, doesn't work, and it will just create death of the essence of life in them. So that's really what the situation we're at is. So I totally understand your viewpoint, and I
Can I ask you
agree.
a question?
Yeah, go for it.
Is there
Sorry, I
such a thing?
ramble.
No, no. Is there such a thing as a female incel? Because I wasn't really. I feel like in my
Uh,
celibacy, like any woman can get laid.
Well, I think that there definitely is like a cultural push for a female incel, and the fact that there's a lot of virgin girls right now who are, I know because I've dated and talked to and spent a lot of time communicating and playing around with these kind of girls that are essentially not having sex and are trying to keep themselves locked away and using the internet as a protective barrier for themselves, just like men, you know, men of a young age are doing. But the difference is with these women is that they're really attractive and healthy and smart and capable, but they're terrified of basically fucking around with a weak man and ruining themselves. A lot of these girls are religious. So they're electing, pardon me for burping right in the mic. So they're electing to essentially just build themselves and go to college instead which is a bad trap because that's just going to institutions, just going to Babylon. It's no different. But I do want to answer the Babylon question.
Yeah,
The reason why I trauma dumped that story is because the trauma dump of that story is how I came to the Babylon thing. So I lost my white company F-250. I got fired by my dad. The company that divorced my parents and robbed my childhood essentially traumatized me again. Got my heart broken for the first time, and my dad caused it. At 30 years old, I got my heart broken for the first time. That's kind of rough because I've been married to a virgin the whole time and never had relationship issues. And so I spent the next 6 months basically picking up my face from being sniped, and I don't even remember those 6 months. It was pretty fucking wicked. I remember I don't even know. For the first few months, I just cried and ate shitty food. And then I remember I went to like Jerry Bob's and I ate like this big stack of fucking pancakes with synthetic syrup on it and a bunch of bullshit. And I remember downing the whole thing. I used to be 320 pounds, by the way, when I met my wife when I was 17.
I believe that. Yeah. You got abs now, right?
Yeah, and well, my parents let me eat whatever I wanted. My father encouraged me to eat like shit. But when I got older, I realized I need to value my health, and it is very important because I needed to honor the life in me. But anyways, a Christian thing. But anyways, so I was eating all these pancakes and shit, and I'm already like healthy looking and stuff, but I'm kind of reverting. You know what I mean? And I eat this whole fucking stack of pancakes, all this like added like sausage and shit. And my wife is sitting across from me. She's not eating anything. And I finish everything and I don't feel like shit. And that scared the fuck out of me. I like ate it all and I didn't feel like I just killed myself. I felt like I kind of just like, nah, okay, now what else? What do we do now? And that scared me because I know I just basically downed like 2,500, 3,000 calories of poison. And the fact that my mind was able to be like, it's okay. It scared me because I knew that basically like, whoa, I live with the trap right here. And from that moment, I actually haven't eaten any poison since. I think that was about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, something like that. I haven't had any seed oils, added sugar. I only eat honey or maple syrup. Everything is made at home from scratch. My daughter, my son, my wife makes everything from scratch. I eat literally no lab ingredients, no pork, no shellfish, like the most Christian you could possibly eat in a modern capability without spending all the money in the world. But that being said, I I was basically I got into a few months of just really exercising, really hardcore, being like, no, I'm not gonna let this beat me. And in waking up and just running, like I was running like 10 miles a day, something crazy. I was out there early on a sunrise in the desert one morning with my feet barefoot on the ground, sweating, running shirtless, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like where is it going? Where is the light inside me going? And this is actually what Anthony and I are why we're friends, is because of this moment. A lot of the people I work with and I'm friends with, a lot of it is influenced by this moment. So I kind of close my eyes and I just try to stop everything and see the light that lives in my belly. What is it pushing me towards? And it goes like, what is the purpose of everything? And it goes, I feel it go like security. I just don't want to die. The light inside me, the life inside me, the innocence inside me, all it does is just try to live while the body around me is decaying and the world around me is trying to kill me and everything is trying to kill it. All it is in an existential crisis moment of just trying to live, and it's seeking security. And I realized in that moment that that's why everyone that does anything, it's why they do it. It's why the homeless man begs. It's why the woman seeks comfort and even a secure future for her child. It's why a military member joins the military. It's why a president runs for president, even if they have bad intentions. It's like literally good or bad intentions. Everyone does everything for security. Everyone, from the moment you're born to the moment you die. That last prayer you say before you die to that first time you cry when you're a little baby, it's for security. And the thing is that Babylon and the love of money has figured that out. And it works from the moment you come out the womb and you cry to the moment you die and you say your last prayer. Every moment in between, Babylon owns it. besides those two moments. In the moment you cry for your mother, you're seeking for life, the life of your mother, you're seeking the Lord. In the moment right before you die, you pray. I've never said this before. This kind of just came to me. The moment you pray about this shtick, the moment you pray right before you pass, you're seeking security from the Lord. But every moment between there, it's about get a job. It's about, oh, my baby could have a nicer set of clothes on them. Oh, my baby needs a little hat or a little mittens. Or da 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 da. No, your baby just needs to be fucking hugged. Maybe some blankets, like from animal skin. You really don't need shit. You need each other. You need Jesus. That's what you need. That's the security you need. And Christians have lost that. We find security in worldly tradition. So even if you're a Christian, you're part of the Catholic Church, Orthodoxy, anything like that, even an evangelical, you're finding security in worldly tradition, not in Yeshua. If you tell your kid just go get a good job, or if you find security in money at all, you're finding security in love of money, not in Yeshua. If you find security in building your own company, or being a part of a company, or even having like a commune type society where you collectively put together your funds into building small institutions or small places for people to gather, and it's not owned by the individual, you're seeking security in institutions. If you even just trust your own knowledge, your thoughts and emotions, you're finding security in self, not in Yeshua. These are the power structures that the empire, that the enemy has used to create Babylon. And Babylon plays a part in all of our lives, not just through the physical streets and houses and empires and military conquests and economic conquests, but it comes down to, and it starts with our thoughts and emotions. Babylon is really just the love of money, and the love of money really is just the culmination of our forward progression of our thoughts and emotions. The moment that we ate the fruit and we lost our God-given instincts as our pure leading point, and we were like the gods. We had the knowledge of good and evil. We were tapped into the group chat of the Elohim, essentially. It was in that the Satan did not fully lie. Like it's about the 99% truths with the 1% lie. He said we'd be like the gods, and he wasn't lying in that. The humans were made to be servants. We are not made to be divine conscious beings. In being divine conscious beings in a level of conscious state that was already fallen before humans had touched it, we then were exposed to good and evil. In that, we then started to try to figure out how we can find security ourselves. The first thing they did was they covered themselves with fig leaves for security. And now it's accumulated into mortgages and IPOs and digital currencies. Mm-hmm. And it is no different than the fig leaves. It's the thoughts and emotions finding security in self. But Babylon is the ultimate accumulation of all humans doing this together forward through historic motion. And that's what Yeshua, he came to destroy a lot and to save us spiritually. But what many Christians just can't plainly see is, look at this man, the Son of God, the Lord's only begotten Son, the Most High, his only begotten Son came to us in a manger, not a hospital. He didn't come in an institution. He came in a manger. He came in sandals and rags, not in royal robes. He came as a representative of the kingdom of God, of the living God, not worldly things. And Christians just don't fucking get it.
Good. I mean, that was deep. So how do you start to unplug? This almost reminds me of the Matrix, right? It's like the Matrix.
Oh, how do you unpack it? Right. So
Yeah.
This is what happened next in my revelation. I had the security, and then my eyes are still closed. And then the next thing that comes to me, it was a line of revelations over the course of 30 minutes. Bam, bam, bam. And it was unpacking it. So the security point came to me. Okay, this is the purpose of life on earth, is security. Because we are not connected to the tree of life. We've been kicked from the garden. So the life inside of us is freaking out. Oh, we're going to die. What do we do? That's the purpose, is figuring that out. That's what the enemy plays at, and that's what the Lord plays at as well. Where do you go? Which path? The narrow path or the wide path? And then the next thing that came to me is, okay, where is Daegen Carey going knowing this? What am I moving forward to preserve the life inside me? And I just understood this phrase, and Anthony loves this phrase: land titty cows. Land titty cows. And I was like, okay, I
It's
need
our little
land.
mantra.
I need land. And not just me, but the life, it's not me, it's the life force needs it, which is me as a Christian. It needs land, it needs titties, reproduction, so the life can spread and keep going. For when I die, it's not defeated. It needs land so it has the ability to build and have safety, and then cows, because cows is healthy, it's prosperity, it's true wealth, not in money, it's wealth in life force. And by the blood. And then I came home and the Lord had me write down this thing. This would be the first time we're posting this publicly. This will ever be public, but a lot of my friends know about this, and it's something that we all put a lot of work into. But he had me write this exact paper. This is the exact paper I wrote, and I wrote it without understanding any of it as I wrote it. But it's the 7 purposes of life on earth: generational tribal fear of God, generational tribal experience, generational tribal health, generational tribal commodities, generational tribal knowledge, generational tribal innovation. And here I tried to write something that was on my own thoughts and emotions, not my instincts. And Yeshua was like, no, because I didn't understand it. I tried to write like creation, but it's supposed to be innovation. And then capital. And capital doesn't mean money. It actually means, because what is capital in a fiscal sense? It's basically whenever you have money and you purposely have people who have a mindset to take the money and invest it somewhere for a return. It could be a fiscal return, or it can even just be an endeavor to garner experience or knowledge or anything like that, or a commodity foundation. That is what that means. But it's valuing people as the capital, not money as the capital, because people are what takes money and turns it into capital. So a person, capital basically means any Christian who exercises their full capability of their house themselves fiscally. So you take your experience, your money is actually doesn't really matter so much, but we're just going to say that your money, your experience, your commodity, even your health, your knowledge, your innovation, most importantly, your fear of God, and you exercise it for return into the marketplace. And the 7th purpose of life on earth used to be warfare. But because we live in a modern Babylon of America the Great, where capitalism is now the current warfare and they've changed the rules, that makes it better for us Christians because that's peaceful. So it used to be that if you want the 7 purposes of life on earth, how you protect the life inside yourself would be through the 7th thing would be warfare. After you have experience, health, commodities, knowledge, and innovation, you need to protect yourself. You can't protect yourself without innovation. People use innovation. You need the rock to hit someone with the rock. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then you put the stick on the rock, or else the next guy is going to do it. So that's why it would come last. They come in order. That being said, we don't really, you live by the sword, die by the sword. Christians were peaceful. We don't need to do violent warfare either. We have, yes, you should protect your house, but I'm saying is you don't, it is, what will kill you will be institutions. What will kill you will be the love of money. What will kill you, and Yeshua knew this. This is why Yeshua stopped whenever cut off the ear. He said, no. It's not the violent threat that's I'm going to defeat the violent threat. I'm going to arise on the 3rd day. It's the institutions. It's Judas getting the money. It's your guys' thoughts and emotions. That's what's killing you guys. So anyways, the most important thing, and I'm going to get off the list of the 7 purposes really quick, but the most important thing of the 7 purposes is, and why it's written in red for blood, is generational tribal fear of God. You cannot garner value from experience, health, commodities, knowledge, innovation, or capital without first fearing God. Because if you try to garner experience without fearing God, you will have experiences that will take you from the Lord. If you try to garner value of health without fearing God, you're going to do things like eat bloody meat, like soul bra and all the weird dudes say to do, but that's against the law. You literally, scripture tells us you should never eat blood. It's witchcraft. Mm-hmm. So you need to have the fear of God before you value commodities, or else you're going to become greedy. You won't value life. So the fear of God is the most important thing. Without the fear of God, your bloodline will die. And this is where we can get into the bloodline conversation, because these 7 purposes allow you to continue your bloodline and have a successful bloodline. And that's the point of them.
So go ahead, Anthony. You want to jump in?
There's some scriptures that Dagen and I have talked about a lot. So that first one, generational tribal fear of the Lord, that'd be Proverbs 9:10. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the holy is understanding. And then the other stuff you're talking about, like how war is changed. Micah 4. We talk about Micah 4 all the time, especially verses 3 and 4. They'll hammer their swords into plowshares, their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not lift up sword against nation. Never again will they train for war. And here's verse 4. Each of them will sit under his vine and under his fig tree with no
Fiscal.
one to make them afraid, for the mouth of the Lord of the hosts has spoken.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's speaking fiscal and security.
Yep, and true peace. And every man should have his own place, his own stuff, his own women, his own bloodline. And then if you have multiple men, patriarchs of that nature connected to each other, that you build the kingdom of the Lord that way.
I think there's going to be people that are going to hear this and they're going to think, okay, well, what does that mean for the average person? Like, so what did you do when you got this download?
I started practicing, so I instantly started fearing the Lord more. And the generational tribal thing is the biggest part is that if you try to do these things, just fear, and this is what a lot of Christians do, they'll try to just fear the Lord, get some of these things off on themselves, but it won't matter because we are not connected to the tree of life currently. So the life will just live inside you and go nowhere. It needs to be like a lamp. It needs to spread. So that's why generational tribal is in front of everything. Generational means family, Christian family. Tribal means Christian friends. A tribe is defined as anyone who believes what you believe. So, which unfortunately many countries today, because of our global media influence, don't have that. And America is a nation full of people who don't believe the same thing. But Christians, generally, if we could reject institutions, love of money, and we just all loved Yeshua, would all believe the same thing. So you need to garner the fear of the Lord with Christian family and Christian friends. You need to garner experience with Christian family and Christian friends so that the light and the value will spread exponentially. So what I started doing was that I started practicing. I have 3 kids now, but at the time when I had this, I had 2 kids. I have my wife, I have my mother, I have a bunch of Christian friends, and I basically, like, anytime I could have knowledge, I'm sharing it with whoever I can that's Christian. Any experience I'm having, I'm sharing it with whoever I can. And experience is, a lot of is depth to all these things. Experience means doing something one off, but it also means doing something many times. Like if you're a blacksmith, like if you make swords, that is generational tribal experience. Passing that to your son would be generational tribal experience. But also just going and seeing the Grand Canyon one time, that is generational tribal experience. So if you go see the Grand Canyon by yourself, it is not as valuable as taking as many Christian friends and family members as you can, and even sharing it with them digitally, and then telling them everything you know about it. So you all grow exponentially together as a body, as the body of Christ. You start doing these things with knowledge, commodities, innovation, and you do them not just with Christians, but with houses and with Christian companies as one body, and you get a compounding effect.
The end goal is dominion. Is that what, like to
Correct.
okay, good. Um, tell me about the money thing, because I know you're not big on money. And so how do you work, transact? I mean, what do you believe about all that?
So this is something that we're working on
Mhm.
actually, and we're not ready to make public quite yet, but something that we've been working on for a while, and we have a lot of theology and tool sets and projects surrounding that. Right now, what we do have and we do want to share is the purpose of life on earth, and that's an identification of life value that Christians can harvest, and how we can basically wake up and say, I'm going to get value through life instead of value through money. Now, obviously, we all live in Babylon. We're subject to Babylon. You have to pay the bills. Even if you have your house paid off, you have to pay property taxes, right? So we're all slaves, carnally and even consciously, to this Babylonian system. But the thing is that you can begin to garner value that's not subject to building up Babylon. Because as you pay bills, and even if you own your own company, Chick-fil-A is a Christian company, but they poison people every day. They have the most poisonous ingredients out of any fast food company in the world. They are furthering Babylon's plan every single day. They have people wake up and they work a 9 to 5 job for non-Christian companies, take part of that paycheck, give it to Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A gives it to their employees. Chick-fil-A hires gay people. They give that money to their employees. The employees then go take that money and spend it on who knows what, and it furthers the cycle, and everyone's enslaved and poisoning each other. Just because it's a Christian company doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Christians as a body are not going to benefit in regards to value, exchange, yielding, extraction, and building until we start finding value in life instead of Babylon. And even the Christians that are the most life centered publicly, like ones who would say, go and get a homestead, and they YouTube it and they're make it a big thing. They're collecting that YouTube paycheck. They might be doing a sponsorship deal. Like, you're playing into the beast system at the end of the day. And I know that this may sound ridiculous and extremist, but we have to remember that scripture tells us you serve only one master and you hate the other. So, how is it that every day Christians who love Jesus are spending most of their time serving the beast system, and they're going to tell me you hate that beast system and you love Yeshua? No, I believe that you hate Yeshua and you love that beast system. You love the beast system that puts the shirt on your back, that puts the bed underneath your butt, and puts the roof over your head. And the idea of being like Abram and going off and leaving Babylon is something you wouldn't do because you don't love Jesus. And that's the wake up call that I think many Christians need to have. They need to be able to forfeit everything for Yeshua. And, that's as simple as beginning to value the experience you have with your son today and finding that to be more valuable than money. And that's all I'm asking for and calling for.
Mm. So I'm trying to reconcile one thing that you said, because you did talk about like you still got to pay the bills. So here's where I stand. I work for a mission, like a purpose. Like what do I believe is going to help alleviate pain in the world the most? And right now, I believe it's to expose the false monogamy only doctrine. So I give all my time to that as much as possible. I don't work for money, although I do need to make enough money just to, put a roof over my head and eat.
As do I.
But so I've
Mhm.
thought about that, friends that they just work a job that's really meaningless to them outside of money. Now I know people that work for money and they do good things with it. They tithe and they may provide jobs for people. But for me, it's, like before it was the exposing the monogamy, the false monogamy only doctrine. I was sexual purity was my platform. I wrote a book and about it, and I made
I love
videos.
that.
And I really wanted, because I felt that's what's going to fix things is if you can get people to understand there's value in saving sex for marriage,
I agree.
especially, like the people will get married, they'll have more kids. That was my big thing. It was like something I kind of had a revelation about. And now it's this. Now I'm still trying to monetize this because I want to have some, quality of life with my wife and, hopefully children. And
Well, that's the
so
thing is I'm
so
not calling for like a decline of quality of life, even though I know that that's what it sounds like I'm saying, like be Abram and literally leave. But we have to remember that Abram didn't become Abraham and meet a king who gave him lots of riches. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that I can't expect anyone to just, I guess, have this download or know this or just not value money in our current Babylonian system, just walk into the flame. But I do call people to walk into the flame. I think that people should walk into the flame and believe that the angel of the Lord will protect them, as that's what I've done. And Anthony knows that I've walked into the flame on this situation multiple times. And but I don't think it's so much a thing about individuals needing to do something right now as much as it is a thing of tool sets and men needing to build like an ark, uh, a way and a refuge for Christians to be able to value life. And that's really what we're working on. So we're not trying to wave the finger or tell anyone that, don't make money or don't provide for your family. We're maybe trying to just identify a problem and as men come together and figure out that solution through Yeshua alone as our lead.
yeah, I mean, where I was going with that was like, there's got to be some kind of balance. Like you live in a house, right? So you do, even
Mhm.
if you keep your expenses very low, and I keep my expenses super low, but I still have to make a certain amount of money just to, like you said, pay the property taxes and the water bill or whatever. How are you doing that?
Well, I own my own business. I also do third party contracting work, and we do keep our expenses very low. I do pay the bills, but despite that, Babylon is actually getting my house. I'm actually losing my house,
Mm.
but it's not something that if I could just throw $10,000 at it, even probably $100,000 at it, it would fix. It's actually an issue of the heart. maybe an issue for another episode. But that being said, money can't really protect you from these things. It's kind of like the idea, like the seventh purpose being capital. Violent warfare used to be the seventh purpose of life on earth because that's how you would protect yourself before capitalism was really a thing. But that doesn't stop Babylon from still coming over and tearing you over. Just because you may have a bunch of money and can keep your house protected, that doesn't stop Elon Musk or some bigger gorilla coming through that wants to fuck with you from fucking with you. And it doesn't stop them from defeating you on the worldly standpoint. So, as Christians, we shouldn't harness our energy into storing up weaponry of the world. We should store up our riches in the kingdom and believe that life will protect us. And really, at the end of the day, those who use weapons are people. And if we value life, it is people who use the weapons and will be protected. But the thing is that we value weapons and not people, and people think that they're not as important as the weapons currently. So if people could wake up and realize that you have the power, then money and Babylon couldn't come and roll us over. Christians, there's 2.8 billion Christians in the world right now. If 2.8 billion Christians realize the things I'm saying, no financial entity or physical warfare entity could ever hurt them. But it's just a matter of perspective and leadership through Yeshua being leader instead of people falling astray and sheep going away from the herd. But that being said, I identified this and I felt that money stood at the opposition of this because money is referred to as a security. So I knew that basically people were blanketly, instead of finding security in land, city, cows, the Lord, these seven purposes, they're finding security in money. Just kind of like how you just said, like, you still got to pay the bills, you still have to live comfortably. And in that moment, I kind of rejected that. And I was like, well, I'm going to do everything I do day to day to value these seven purposes. And yes, I'll make money to the point that I need to, but any free moment I can, I'm going to try to garner value into this. And I'm going to try to build something with my friends, the Value Generational Tribal and family, that will make it so that we can find refuge in life and won't need to live enslaved to money anymore. So I find it ridiculous that us as Christian men have gone this long and every single one of us are cucked by this situation. And especially men like us who don't like being cucked, or the multiple wives kind of guys. We still are cucked by the big bad alpha that is the love of money. And actually, one of the biggest things that made me realize it was the fact that in trying to deal with women is that it wasn't so much that I needed to compete against other men, because I don't really feel like I need to compete against other men. It was that women are picking money over me. And it's not even that because I'm not rich or something. If I was still rich, they'd still do the same thing. Meaning Elon Musk still has a problem keeping a bitch at his side as a companion. He has all the money in the world. Any man, Jeff Bezos does too. The point being is that even if you're the richest man in the world, you still don't own 51% of money. Money is still your daddy. Unless you own 51% of money, and money is the rule book, you cannot be the alpha male. There is no such thing as alpha male in Babylon except money. And money is essentially nothing. Well, it's not nothing. We know what, me and Anthony know what it is, but that's maybe for another podcast. But it's essentially manipulation of nothing for the most part. You can put it on a blank statement like that. And that means every man in the bedroom in all of the world is being cucked by nothing.
So, what would it look like in a perfect scenario? Would it be a group of Christians doing life together and they're trading, goods? Because I'm like thinking, okay, let's say you go nomadic, right? You get a camper and you start living out of your truck or whatever with your family. You still got to get gas, right? So I mean, because we live in the world, right? So you got to, at some point, you're gonna have to put gas in the camper to go anywhere. But I so ideally, how would it look? Because that's not ideal, right? So
Right. It's definitely not. There's kind of two routes that men like to take. They like to either take this peace or prosperity route, and it's both sides of the man exists. A man kind of wants his cabin in the woods where he has all the guns and he's protected and he has his bitches and no one's coming to hurt him, and he's got all the clothes are made from scratch there. Every guy kind of wants that, no matter who you are. And then there's the part of the guys like, I want to go and conquer and make these companies and take over everything, and that both every guy kind of has both those guys in them. And we're really calling for both to happen. We're not calling for seclusion and we're not calling for full on dominion conquest. We're calling to be a man, to value peace and prosperity for your family and a place to sleep at night and have conquest and provision garnished in the daytime. I think Anthony would be best to answer this.
Did you say the question again, Dagen?
The question was basically, what does the ideal situation look like at the endpoint for all this? Speaking about like Daegan and stuff, but if you can keep it vague.
Yeah. Well, I'll advise our listeners to go read Acts chapter 2. The entire chapter is a good starting point. So that's the first point. You said money is nothing, and it is and it isn't. It's like a vapor. It's an idol. It is a tool of manipulation, and the ultimate resource, or the coin of the realm, if you want to.
The coin of the realm, love it.
Coin of the realm. Well, I've heard a pastor say that faith is the coin of the realm. I would also say that worship is the ultimate prize. That's what God desires from all of us, and that's what he desires from all of creation. And all creation worships God, whether they like to or not. Every knee will bow, every tongue will confess. And we may have talked before about crickets are an example of worshiping. When you take the sound of crickets and then you stretch out that sound so that the lifespan of a cricket is relative to the lifespan of a man, that it sounds like an angelic singing. So all of creation exists to worship God, Father. Satan, the adversary, he desires worship. The day iniquity was found in him, what was that iniquity? He stepped away from leading in the worship of God, and he sought that worship for himself. He sought to, overcome and overthrow and be as God, or even, ascend above God. So knowing that, and like you said, money is about security. It's about protecting the life that feels itself being of threat. Because if you were in a quickened, immortal body that not only couldn't die by time, by old age, by, decay, and what's the word? I'm forgetting the word right now, but like we're in a fallen state where our body is dying. We can eat perfectly. We can live in the best places. We can never have heavy metals exposed to us, never breathe in any toxic stuff, never have any toxic thoughts, and our body will still eventually perish because we're in a death state. If you weren't in that death state, if you had that immortal, quickened body, then what fear would you have for anything? You wouldn't be influenced or affected by the slavery and the tyranny of money. And we're saying money as a broad term, not, paper or, coins per se, or cryptocurrency or any other form of money. Money is the broad thing that we use as a shield, as a defense to try to extend our life. And in other words, it is heavy idolatry because we trust money more than we trust God. We trust that we can defend our life and extend our life through the act of acquiring money and using it for what money is used for, instead of saying, God, I have needs, my needs. Like think Matthew, I think it's 6, verse 25, or like, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. That's a very powerful instruction. And to actually live that with faith and believe that if I obey that, if I seek God's kingdom, if I seek his righteousness, and then after he will give me all that I have need of, how much freeing would that be? Because we wouldn't be saying, I need to go to Babylon and make money so that I can protect this life. I'm seeing that God is going to bring his people back into a state of being like a child that is dependent on Father for everything.
Yes.
Just like
Amen. Praise Yeshua.
I have young children, and their lives are completely dependent on what I provide for them, and that is a glorious and righteous thing. Think about how wicked and satanic and demonic it is for people who have the attitude, I can't have children, or I won't have children because of, quote, the economy. They value money and their own personal comfort and experience and pleasure more than life. It's like my vessel, the life inside of me is pressing against my vessel and yearning to enter new vessels, new children, so that new voices can come on this earth for the glory of God and call upon the name of the
Right.
Lord. It's going to take tremendous faith, like you've written about in Joshua, be strong and of a good courage. There's giants over there, like Babylon is like a giant that is physically impossible to defeat if you just go toe to toe, weapon to weapon, sword to sword. But through God, all things are possible. He's the great warrior. He's our general. He is like there's just so many examples of God leading his children into physically impossible battles and then just absolutely wiping the floor, wiping the board off of the enemy. When you're perfectly in obedience to God, then his power is able to be accessed and he shows his might and his power. Whenever men would try to use their own strength, their own arms, their own intellect, their own money to defeat the enemy, which is ultimately, the threat of death, the loss of security,
Hmm. Hmm.
it ends up in ruin and destruction. Even if they think they're winning temporarily because they've got the money and the girls and the car and
Right.
all the stuff, it's not real. It's not permanent because you can still be killed at any point. You can
And
still
that's a
lose
big
it.
part of Babylon is oh, I'm the winner today. And you're not the winner because then you're going to be trampled over in a week. That's how Babylon works. And it all turns to dust.
Yeah.
Well, we talk about Babylon. Think about King Nebuchadnezzar and the might and glory of him and his empire when he was alive. How powerful he was. Like people think there's power in this day and age, and yes, there is. But the majesty and the splendor of Babylon under Nebuchadnezzar would boggle the mind.
Hmm.
And he was brought low,
Yeah.
and Babylon was brought low. It doesn't matter how big, rich, powerful the armies, the chariots of iron. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
It
Yeah.
reminds me of that verse where it says, I think it says, counsel you to buy from me gold refined in the fire. You say that I am rich and I have need of nothing, but you do not realize that you're poor, miserable, or
Uh,
whatever. It,
Blind
it
and naked.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It
Yep.
reminds me of that because there are people that are rich in the world's eyes, but they're really poor and blind.
Right.
So
They think they're rich, increased of goods, and have need of nothing. No, and they know not that they're wretched, miserable, poor, blind, and naked.
yes,
And that's a spiritual thing because people who are so numb and disconnected from God's spirit, all they can see is the flesh and the superficial things that they can touch and look at.
yeah.
So
Really, I
yeah,
think
we're basically divorcing ourselves from the world. We're
Yes.
dying to the world and we're falling in love with God and his word. Because like you said earlier, Rob, you can't love two masters. You'll love the one and hate the other.
yeah. Well, I think that's a good place to conclude. I know, Anthony, you got to get ready.
I actually extended
Oh,
my,
okay.
I actually have time here. So if the
Okay.
energy's here, if you guys are still
Sure.
good,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
I do
good.
want to keep going.
I'm
Yeah,
good.
let's keep talking. I
Yeah.
was thinking, how do you get there I mean, I'm thinking about my own life, and I had this radical encounter with Jesus when I was 27, and it was very much a road to Damascus, but God, told me to follow him, and broke up with my beautiful 18-year-old girlfriend, and I quit my career that I was doing, and I was like closing my eyes and falling backward is what it felt like.
Right.
And I'd never been caught before by God. So I didn't have any faith at the time. But I just trusted that he would catch me, and he did. It was painful. I went through a series of those jump like moments where I had to jump and I wasn't sure if the parachute would open. But that's how like if I go to the parable of the 10 virgins where they talk about the oil and how five didn't have oil in their lanterns. I really feel like there's not many Christians that have done that, right? So they don't know what it's like to really lean on God and trust Him, and for Him to be their security. They may go to church every week, but they're part of Babylon, and they don't even know it. And when the fire comes, because there is going to be, I believe, a time of testing, the tribulation. You're going to see a lot of people. They don't have any oil in their lanterns. They haven't developed this cultivated this relationship with God. They don't know what it means to walk by the Spirit, even. So, how do you see all of it playing out? Like the world that we're in now. You think do you believe in the rapture? Do you think that it's imminent? Do you believe in second?
Um, I believe, yeah, I believe in the second coming. Of course, Yeshua will come. He'll come from the sky, so you know it's him. That's the most beautiful thing about that prophecy. It's not even a prophecy as much as it is truth and stone. Is that when Yeshua comes, and Anthony and I were talking about this, he comes on a white horse with his name etched into his thigh in the sky. You can't mistake it. Obviously, people talk about like holograms and stuff like that. That kind of stuff happens. I'll stay away from that kind of stuff. But like a deception or something, I'll stay away from that kind of speak. But Yeshua will come from the sky when he comes. But that all happens after quite a lot happens. Pretty much the world gets wrecked before that happens. So that's not going to happen until, like, you know, it's going to happen before it happens, essentially. And as far as a rapture goes, a rapture is not really so scripturally sound, in my opinion. I do believe and know that there will come a point where the martyrs cry out and say how much longer, their spirits and their essence in heaven, and say how much longer until we're joined by the rest, and that the Lord tells them not to so much longer, and they'll come soon. And then in that moment, not long after, they soon come. Though I wouldn't call that a rapture. The issue with the rapture is that the idea of a rapture is that your body goes up. But in Hebrew teaching, there's a separation of soul and spirit.
Yeah.
Modern understanding of soul is based off of these Greek ideas that basically your soul is like a thing, a spirit trapped in a bottle that can break out. But in scripture, what scripture teaches us in the Hebrew viewpoint of it is that your soul is your body. So your soul is actually your physical body. It's your name. Even it's so if you have a pet, for example, I have a black cat, her name is Espanol. Her body, her name, the fact she's living in that body, that is her soul. Her spirit is the ruach. In Hebrew, it's the spirit's the breath inside of you. It's the in and out breathing, and that is the light in your eyes. That's what makes a virgin girl a virgin girl. What makes us like a virgin girl is the ruach. It's the life. It's the spirit. It's the innocence. And animals have this, plants have this, people have this, and animals, plants, and people also have a soul, but your soul is your nefesh. That's why the significance of Christ rising and defeating and conquering death, but rising with his nefesh is significant, and then transcending with spirit, and then emplacing his spirit into all of us. So on the day of the Lord, he will harvest his people. And when he harvests his people, it will be their nefesh, their souls, their bodies rise up from the grave, or if they're already living at the time, and they will be made to not die. And they'll live for 1,000 years in the millennial kingdom. And all who are not of Yeshua will die during that 1,000-year period. And after that 1,000-year period, there will be the culmination of the day of the Lord, because a day is 1,000 years to the Lord. So at the beginning of the 1,000 years, the believers are resurrected, just like Yeshua was resurrected and Lazarus was resurrected. And even there's scripture that says that when Jesus was resurrected, other holy ones were resurrected as well. I learned about that the other day. Kind of sick. Look into that. You ever heard of that, Anthony? Oh, you're smoking. Anyways, there's scripture.
Yeah, I have that when he was resurrected, the saints
Yeah.
prior who had been sleeping were resurrected, and they were walking around the cities, and people like were recognizing, hold on,
Right.
he's
Right.
dead.
It's in Luke,
Yeah.
I
And
think.
and then they were taken up shortly thereafter.
So this is all foreshadowing of what happens on the day of the Lord. All the believers are resurrected, and they inherit the earth and live on the earth for 1,000 years, and all non-believers will perish during those 1,000 years. And after the 1,000 years, all those who perished and didn't come to Christ will be resurrected again and then cast into the fire. This is significant because in Matthew 13, in the parable of the wheat and the weed, the wheat and the tares, it teaches us that the believers will grow alongside the non-believers, and that there will come a harvest time where the believers will be put into the barn, and then the non-believers will be put into the furnace, and they'll be separated at that moment. And that's very significant to what we do, Anthony and I, that scripture. So my name Daegen means wheat. It means it's the Hebrew word for grain. So anyways, so we really believe that the starting point for all this is just people fearing God, fearing the Lord. It's the beginning of wisdom. So, like Anthony was saying, you have people who just don't even, or you were saying actually, Rob, people who don't even kind of think about this stuff. They're kind of just on autopilot. If they could spend 24 hours a day, even when they're sleeping, fearing the Lord, they're just going to instantly change the way that they behave, regardless of money or economic or fiscal things on a spiritual level. This is how you come to Christ. So we need everybody to do that so that we can be a stronger body of Christ. You can't submit to Yeshua without fearing his dad, without fearing Abba.
Hmm.
So that is really what it looks like. Is it starts with people fearing the Lord, and how that happens. Maybe people need to fear the Lord selfishly, like the Israelites did. Uh, the Israelites, as they followed Moses, as the Red Sea split, I wonder how many of them feared the Lord and to what degree truly versus Babylon, because Egypt is like Babylon at that time for them, right? Babylon was going on in the world during the time, but for them, the oppression was Egypt. How many of them, as Egypt was coming at their tail ends, what was the level of fear they had for Egypt before the water was split versus for the Lord? Then, as the water split, how much of it was then for the Lord versus Egypt? And then, as the water crushed Egypt in their hearts, what was the amount of fear for the Lord versus the fear for Egypt? Something that I feel that is important is that people shouldn't need uh, miracles so much, but we have a good master, and our master even taught us that he doesn't require for us to even have faith. He'll show us him by his works. So it's maybe not so much what we need to do as much as how much we need to listen to the
Hmm.
song and see the movie and see what Yeshua is doing so that we can have faith in him because of the works and not just
Hmm.
have to rely on faith. And in that, maybe we'll see some splittings of seas and we can harbor fear for the Lord. So that may be on the Lord's doing, but maybe for us to just be aware.
Yeah. Well, how has this impacted your life positively and negatively, like your family, your work, both positive and negative, since you kind of been red pilled, for lack of a better term?
I I would say it's impacted it greatly. I've harvested a lot of life value. I'd say that I've become more innovative, knowledgeable. I have a better understanding of commodities, definitely healthier. I'm getting a lot more experience a lot faster, and the people around me are as well. And my fear of the Lord is just much more than it's ever been. And I've feared the Lord since I met Yeshua when I was a young boy. But it's definitely exponentially growing, and it's growing in the people around me. But also, I face opposition, and the ways of the world hate me, and the people of the world hate me. And the more I value the living God, and I think it's important for us to call the Most High, Abba, our Father, the living God, because that really helps us separate and understand what the playgrounds are. We have the living God versus the God of the world, death, the Satan. Um, I won't even call him the God of the world anymore, but just the value set of death, Babylon, the Satan, the enemy, versus the living God. When you serve the living God, the idea of getting a job becomes pretty stupid. You really just want to have kids, and you want those kids to be really strong and capable to maybe own companies that are really ethical so that they can have kids themselves and take care of themselves. And I think your value sets change from opportunity and it starts going into building.
Hmm. So it's improved. Like it's not,
uh, Worldly it's disimproved, but spiritually it's improved.
yeah.
If you could say like of Yeshua when he was, I don't want to compare myself to being crucified, but like when Yeshua was being martyred, and martyr just means witness. It means basically you're being witness to right and wrong, the
Mm.
contrast of right and wrong. When Yeshua was being martyred, it was going good for him, and he was garnishing and storing in riches for the kingdom, but he was literally being whipped and killed by the world. So that's kind of what's happening to me on a fiscal level, and in some other aspects. So the world is definitely rejecting me and hitting me pretty hard every day in the face.
Yeah.
But my wife and my children and the people that I'm closest to, who love Yeshua, it couldn't be any better. And I see a bright future for my life living for the living God, but I don't see a bright future for my life living for the world. It
Yeah.
seems that I've really fucked that pooch.
Yeah, I mean, I remind my wife about that. I'm like, you know, Jesus did everything right and he was still nailed to a cross at the end, right? Like, so
Yeah,
just because Paul, I mean, he didn't have a great life. I mean, by worldly standards, I mean, um, so like following God doesn't mean, you know, the prosperity gospel, for example, doesn't mean you're gonna
right,
get
right.
the big house and
We're
you know,
not looking
whatever.
for that, but what we are calling for is for a day of vengeance against the oppressors, and a day that lasts forever of refuge for Christians.
Mhm.
And we're building that with
Mhm.
Yeshua as our King, and we sacrifice ourselves for that mission, no matter what that means. So we are calling to build, not to necessarily do anything in particular right now, but we want Christians to build with us, and we'll have more public calls for action on that in 5 or 6 months as we continue to build. But we want to defeat the enemy fiscally, and Christians have the numbers, the faith, and the lack of greed to do so.
They just need the knowledge, huh?
Well, we just need Yeshua. That's literally it.
How can people connect with you? Because I'm sure there are people that this will resonate with. So if they want to build, they just connect with you on X or
What Twitter, man, just DM me or DM Anthony. Actually, it'd be better DM us both, but DM Anthony. I love Anthony.
okay, Anthony,
Love you
where's the
too.
best place to reach you? I know Dagan. I'll put the link in the description of this
Yeah,
video.
and it's a
Uh,
DAEGAN, by the way, on my name,
AN.
An.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, and it's DC. The capital is your
Mhm.
handle on X, right?
Correct.
And then Anthony, where's the best place to reach you if anybody wants to?
Yeah, yeah. X is a pretty good one. It's Anthony MG. That's Mike Golf Clark CLARK ANTHONY MGCLARK.
What's the MG stand for?
That's my middle name, Mac Gregor.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, it's a Scottish name.
Hmm.
I actually inherited that from my father. So his middle name is Mac Gregor, and I received that. Yeah, he's the youngest born in his family. I'm the firstborn. I'm not sure how or why he got that name, but that's like a remnant from, the Scottish heritage. And then
You know
I
what it
gave
means?
that. Do I know what it means? Not off the top of my head. I did look up my name, the meaning of my name. Actually, just hold on. I do have a note for that. Just one second.
Because Matt Gregor means son of something, but non-royal connotation.
Mac Gregor. Yeah, name meanings. It is. Well, according to this website, I think the name meaningofnames.com or something like that, it means
Yeah, those are kind
what?
of bullshit.
According to that, it means watchful and alert. Or
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
like
true.
like son of Gregor or Gregorius. So it has
What's
German,
Gregor mean?
Scottish. Sorry?
What's Gregor mean though?
That's a good question.
Me, oh, I'm gonna look it up right now.
Well, Gregor, yeah, this is where it comes into watchful and alert. Yeah, Gregory is the English form of the Latin Gregorius from late Greek, Gregorios, derived from Gregoros, meaning watchful and alert. Yeah, so it is actually a Greek originating word.
Oh
Do
wow.
you believe that the names, like the name that you were given, has any power to it, even if the
Yeah.
parent that didn't know the meaning of the name and they just gave it to you? Do you think there was some divine meaning in that?
I think that what humans do in regards to not just naming people, but naming everything is divine. I think that the naming of streets, cities, people, really everything people build, touch, we're all either we had free will in the garden, but we gave that up when we took the fruit, and now we either serve our instincts, the living God, or our thoughts and emotions, the Satan. And you're either influenced by the Satan's music or Yeshua's music, and you're playing those notes. So no matter what, and the greatest thing about that is that the Satan is subject to Yeshua. So it's all Yeshua. So he is the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, and it's the forethought of everything. So everything is forethought, and the Lord knew our names before we knew our names. I believe that your name, first, middle, and last, or whatever your title is, because people didn't used to have last names and stuff, And people have thought this for a long time because people used to name their kids royal kids after gods for a reason. Your name is linked to your consciousness. So whatever your name is a slice of what your conscious state is going to be, like your thoughts and emotions. So, example, Anthony Clark's name means the top general who scribes, and
Yeah,
his
like
mindset
Clark
is
as
very
in
much that.
cleric. Yeah, cleric, clerk, scribe.
How about mine, Robert Brandon Kowalski?
I just looked up Robert the other day. Hold on, forgot what it was. I like to really, really deep search the name and meaning and word meanings, not because often when you just look it up, it goes deeper when you really try to go deep on the words.
Hmm.
It says Robert means bright fame. So it makes sense that you like to be out front, and
Hmm.
that you like to garner attention to what you're trying to, that the
Yeah.
Lord uses you in a sense. It's like light, bright
Yeah.
fame.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then look into your last name. I'm sure it's going to be no different.
Something to do with blacksmith, I believe.
Oh,
Something.
really? That's funny. I said that earlier. Anyways, so you can obviously live a life that doesn't go into what your name says, but when you do that, you're not honoring your nefesh and you're kind of killing your soul. So
Hmm.
a lot of the times people will be named a certain thing or they're supposed to be a certain person and they live a different life and they feel like their soul's dying. That's why. So
Hmm.
Yeshua, Christos, Jesus Christ, it means salvation, the anointed one. Jesus means salvation, and that is what he is. That's what he means. That's what his
Hmm.
conscious state is. So, yeah, names are very important. When you name animals, I mean, Adam, he named the animals. When you name anything, there's importance to it. I really truly believe that. Do you believe that?
Me?
Yeah,
Um, now that you're talking about it, yeah, I think it sounds like there's something to it. I've never given it much thought, to be honest.
the Hebrews were big on that. I feel
Yeah.
like.
Makes sense. I mean, especially when I hear, the meaning of my name. You're right. I do like to shine light on things and draw attention.
Mhm.
I think I'm the best at drawing attention to things. That's my superpower, if I had to say I had one.
Right. It's your conscious state.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, man, this was a fascinating conversation. I look forward to staying connected with you. Maybe we'll even do it again. I think there's a lot more to unpack there.
Anything,
But
anytime.
Anthony, you
Yeah,
have
there
any
is.
closing thoughts?
Well, just that, I'm looking at our show notes here, and yeah, there's definitely some topics we haven't touched on. And, getting into the namesake of the podcast and this whole, project that we're working on, Man of Options, getting into the becoming the optionality part and the women and the, as you call it, Dagan, the
Titties.
titties part of the land titties cows.
Oh yeah, we never talk about gender dynamics, huh?
Yeah, yeah, but we could be here for 3 or 4 hours. So I think some follow-up episodes would be very prudent. But yeah, but this was pretty powerful. Like, I'm glad we did it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
me
who doesn't
too.
like talking about women? That's like the most fun thing to talk about, right?
Well, that's the big
Yeah.
one. I think a lot of people are really interested in the biblical marriage about the permissibility of it for sure, but then, how to function in a world that's not really built for guys who believe what we do.
Value virgins are way better than non-virgins. Date a virgin.
Mm.
That's what
Start
I'm gonna
hanging out
say.
at
Well,
the junior high schools or something.
No, 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 not that. It's like,
I'm joking.
find
I'm
an
joking.
18 or 19-year-old girl.
I mean, Anthony actually had this conversation before we jumped on with you. I'm like, you'd even be hard pressed to find a teenage virgin. Not a teenage, but like, what do you think the average age a woman loses her virginity nowadays? I'm like, probably 15, 16. It's not old in
Uh, I've
America.
I've honestly been seeing, like I said, there's a dividing point. There are some girls that are like afraid to talk to men, essentially,
Yeah.
from my experience. But it's a cultural divide on who uses the internet the most and who doesn't. But like I said, there's the 17-year-old girl who told me she was 18, and just in a year, she's lost the glimmer in her eye. She's like sexually ruined her life. So it's a big dividing point right now. I think there are a good amount of virgins out there, though. I think you can
Hmm.
find them. I definitely find them, especially 19, 20. Anthony just found, you know,
Yeah.
20-year-old virgin, yeah, in Sydney. And I can't prove that she is a virgin, but just based on the way she's talking, the way she's acting,
you can tell.
yeah,
Yeah.
she's giving virgin vibes. Yeah, like she's not
Awakened.
really like, aggressive. She's
A
very,
big thing with virgins is that if you basically just try to be normal with a girl who's not a virgin, they'll reject you. Essentially, with virgins, you can just treat them like normal people and they'll be cool. that's how you know if a girl's a virgin or not. You can basically, you can love them, you can talk to them, you can send them a long message and they won't just ghost you for it. Like they'll actually read it and shit. That's actually the best way to know if a girl's a virgin or not, because whenever you take a girl who's not a virgin and you love on her and you maybe send her a long message or you give her some love and a good amount of attention, they get fucking skittish and they get weird.
Mm.
They get like, oh, why are you loving me? Are you gonna abandon me? I don't like this. I want you to be the big brute and come just slap me and tell me I'm your bitch.
Right. Yeah.
And so a big part of why I like dating virgins and why I tell people you should date a virgin is because if you date a virgin, you get the beautiful reality of being able to be yourself.
Mm.
Yeah, you don't have to play all these Riz dating games. And
Yeah, fuck that. I hate that shit.
Right. Makes sense. All right, fellas. Well, this was good. Great meeting you. Getting
Oh, it was the
the
best.
face to the name, and I was listening to one of your songs. Keep up with the music, man.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, it's a good medium.
Always.
All right, fellas.
See you guys.
See ya.
yep. Yeah. Bye.